Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to dive into the really fascinating research of Dr. Sudhindra S.G. and reframe how we, especially as teachers, think about sleep. You're about to find out that it's not just about rest. It's one of the most powerful learning tools we have at our disposal.
So what on earth could link the Chernobyl disaster to how well your students do on their exams? It sounds like a pretty wild question, I know. But to really grasp the power of sleep in the classroom, we first have to see the catastrophic consequences when it's missing. We're going to start with a disaster to understand the true stakes here.
You see, when investigators looked into what went wrong at Chernobyl, they found a chilling fact. The breakdown wasn't in the technology. It was a failure of the human mind. A single, very skilled engineer who was working a double shift hadn't slept. And because of that, his ability to reason was so disturbed that he made a mistake that led to the worst nuclear disaster in history, all because of a lack of sleep.
After this tragedy, a new rule was put in place at every nuclear power station, and it's non-negotiable. Every employee has to get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep before a shift. And this really proves a critical point, right? This isn't about being lazy. This is a fundamental requirement for safety and for performing at your absolute best.
You know, this very modern crisis actually takes us back to a much older question. For thousands of years, people have wondered, is the 1/3 of our lives that we spend sleeping just a total waste of time? Well, this exact question was asked a long time ago in an ancient text called the Prashnopanishad.
So, when a student named Saryani asked the sage Pippalada why we have to sleep, Pippalada did something brilliant. He didn't just give him a lecture. He gave him a live demonstration. He pricked the student's leg with a thorn, and as it started to bleed, he just said, "Watch." And without the student even thinking about it, his body knew exactly what to do. The blood started to clot, the healing began all on its own. The lesson was crystal clear. Your body has this incredible innate intelligence to fix itself, but it needs the conscious mind to just be quiet for a little while.
And that's the key takeaway right there. Sleep isn't some passive state. It's not a weakness. It's actually our biggest strength. It's an active, really powerful process where our body and mind deliberately disconnect from the world so they can do the essential work of rebuilding, repairing, and getting everything organized from the inside. Okay, so fast forward a few thousand years. And what's so amazing is that modern science is now showing us exactly what that ancient wisdom was talking about. So let's take a look at what is actually happening inside our brains while we sleep. Think of it like a highly efficient cleanup crew that comes in every single night.
This is a pretty incredible transformation that happens every night. When we're awake, our brain cells are actually kind of swollen, and just the act of thinking and learning creates all these toxic byproducts. It's a real mess in there. But when we go to sleep, our brain cells shrink by up to 60%. This opens up all this space for cerebral spinal fluid to rush in and literally power wash the brain, flushing out all that junk.
But sleep does more than just clean house. It's also when our brain acts like a librarian, sorting through all the day's experiences and memories and deciding what to keep and what to throw away. And here's the really cool part. You're the one who tells the librarian what's important. Let's see how that works.
So yeah, we have an active role in deciding what memories get saved. Let's say you study a tough new concept, but then you spend the last few minutes before falling asleep thinking about that movie you saw earlier. Well, your brain gets a very clear signal. Hey, that movie, that was important. The study material, not so much. So the next morning, you probably remember lines from the film, but struggled to recall what you studied.
This whole idea is just perfectly captured in this verse from the Bhagavad Gita. What you consistently think about, especially right as you're drifting off to sleep, is what your brain flags as being valuable. Your thoughts before sleep are basically programming instructions for your brain's nightly filing system. What you think, you become. What you review, you retain. Okay, so this science is just incredibly powerful. The real question is, how can we, as teachers, turn this into a practical toolkit for our students? And, let's be honest, for ourselves too. Let's get into a few solid strategies. Here is a simple but really profound technique you can share with your students like tomorrow. Tell them to take whatever subject they find the most difficult and just read about it for 15 to 30 minutes right before they go to bed. Now here's the key. They have to go directly to sleep. No phone, no TV, no other distractions. This primes their brain to work on that specific material all night long. And when they wake up,
They'll often find that concept is suddenly much, much clearer. As educators, it is so important that we communicate these numbers. A huge amount of physical growth and, of course, learning consolidation happens during sleep. Experts say babies need around 14 hours, kids need 9 to 10, and teenagers need a solid 8 hours, minimum. We have to make it clear to parents and students that if you cut sleep, you are literally cutting learning and growth.
Sleep is also our ultimate problem-solving tool. You know when you're just stuck, totally frustrated, you can't find the solution? The best thing you can do is sleep on it. While you sleep, your brain is rewiring your knowledge, connecting ideas in new ways, which lets you see the problem from a totally fresh perspective the next morning. And this is exactly why pulling an all-nighter before a big problem-solving exam like the NEET or JEE is one of the worst things a student can do. It actively destroys the very skills they need to succeed.
And this rewiring isn't just for academic stuff. It works on our emotional lives too. Sleep actually flushes out negativity. I mean, think about having a heated argument late at night. The smartest thing you can possibly do is just put a pin in it. Say, let's talk in the morning. Why? Because after a night's sleep, your brain has had a chance to cool down and process those intense emotions, and you are far more likely to make a better, less destructive decision.
So this all brings us to one last, really critical question for all of us who are educators. We teach our students math, science, history, but are we teaching them how to use the single, most powerful, most natural learning tool they will ever possess? Because when we teach the science of sleep, we're giving them more than just a study hack. We are giving them a foundational skill for their exams, yes, but also for a healthier, more successful life.